The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
As Obi-Wan Kenobi once said, hello there, and welcome to Force Center Presents Databank Dive. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Cat Napzok. We are so happy to be with all of you here for this fun-paced, fast show? No. This is our show in which we sit down and in a fun way and a fast way look at the wild, wondrous, and sometimes weird parts of Star Wars. We're going to pull something for the Databanks and talk about it. We also want to let you know that if you love what you hear here or been loving this Databank Dive, inspired by Databank Brawl in the past, we had a full season on The Companion, which is a great sci-fi fantasy content app. You can check that out there. Joseph, I'm so excited to get what we're talking about today. I just threw a bunch of words into a blender and poured it out onto the microphone.
Look, I think everything that you said made sense. We're very excited about the two Fs that are in this podcast. Thank you all for listening to a double F podcast. That sounds dirty, but it isn't. Anyway, we're going to talk about something that is physically dirty at times in its career in Star Wars. We are very excited this episode to discuss Grogu's hovering pram.
Bum, bum, bum. This is great.
It's great. The pram goes through a lot, and there's a lot to talk about. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to go into some basic info. We always go to the Databank page of StarWars.com and see if the thing we're talking about has an entry. And the pram indeed does. Here's what the StarWars.com Databank has to say about Grogu's hovering pram. A hovering pram serves many functions, whether shielding a youngster with a special screen, protecting it from prying eyes and the atrocities of the world beyond, or coasting peacefully to the next destination. The device is a valuable tool for guardians with children too young to protect themselves. All right, let's talk about this entry a little bit, because one of the things we love about these Databank entries is they all have a slightly different vibe. Yeah. I think this is the first one that I've read that sounds like it was written by the manufacturer to be in a catalog.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. What I love about it is you are sitting there for these databanks if you're writing them there at Lucasfilm, and sometimes you got to describe the object in general. But I think this is one where you're looking at what happens with it, and you're using that in the brochure catalog description. The atrocities, to hide them from the atrocities of the world beyond. I don't know if the makers of the pram had that in mind, but it's a good positive byproduct of having one of them. And I love that being in the description. It's real practical.
It's really funny to me because just watching it in the show, you feel like, oh, well, this is designed for, a youngling of some kind. And, maybe you're somewhere loud and the youngling is sleeping and you just want to close the lid and give them a little break. That's fine. But the idea that almost like manufacturers would advertise that's like the second bullet point down, I hear upbeat poppy music. You're watching a commercial and the hovering pram can do it all, whether shielding a youngster with a special screen or protecting it from the atrocities of the world beyond. It's just this really funny contrast with the rest of the tone.
Yeah. Imagine it like in an old school Kenner commercial, right? Like, pram can hide kids from atrocities. Batteries.
Are you tired of carrying your youngster? Is your youngster getting too heavy? Are they also seeing atrocities in the world beyond? Well, we have the answer.
Love that. That's a great description.
Yeah, it's a great one. And then there's more detail, of course, on good old Wookieepedia. Here's what Wookieepedia has to say about Grogu's prams. Multiple. The hovering pram was a hovering device used to carry Grogu. So far, it makes a lot of sense. Din Djarin found it carrying Grogu on Arvala 7 and continued to use it to transport Grogu until handing him over to the client. When Djarin returned to rescue Grogu, he found the capsule discarded in a dumpster. Returning to Arvala 7 to recruit Queel, Djarin used a hover crate to transport the child. On board the Razor Crest, Djarin asked Queel to pad the container so Grogu could sleep better. But the Ugnaught offered instead to fabricate a better hovering pram himself. Queel's version retained the egg shape enclosing cover of Grogu's original capsule, but was fashioned out of metal. Djarin used Queel's capsule to transport Grogu until it was ripped open by Casca Reeves so she could retrieve Grogu after saving him from a mama core.
Oh, that's right.
So that's a great track of all the different Prams he has. I also just feel like I just like took some sort of like test. Like, can you pronounce all these words in this sequence?
Better you than me. That's beautiful. You know what? Because going into this episode, I gotta tell you, if I was in a trivia contest, I would have answered the question, "How many Prams?" with one. He only had one. No, three.
Right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, because maybe 2.5. Like he has a factory Pram. We assume so. It came from a manufacturer, and then he has a crate for a while.
Yeah.
And then I do remember Queel making him a better one. And then I love that this is a part of the legacy of the show, The Mandalorian, of like you'll have these big, beautiful scenes of characters making or rebuilding something and what it means to them emotionally. And then like 2 episodes later, it's gone.
It's gone.
Any other thoughts on that Wookieepedia entry? Any other revelations?
It makes me think of when we go to Arvala 7, where Din finds him. You're right. The Pram is there. It's part of that now iconic and famous shot. Beautiful shot. The fingers touching. The Pram is there. And a lot of people, I even saw this kind of come up today, I think in our Force Center Discord, just people wondering, hey, do we ever really find out, or is that a big part of the story we don't know yet of how he even got there, him being Grogu, and into those the bounty hunters there and the gang there. Obviously it's a big gap in the story so far that we might one day find out. But I wonder if the Pram came with him, or was it the gang who was like, well, I don't know, what do we do? There's a valuable tool for guardians with children too young to protect themselves. Maybe we get one of those. Oh yeah, go to town and get a Pram.
Yeah, no, he has such a connection to it, and it is the kind of audience perspective, right? That we associate him with it because that was the introduction. I am currently, as we record, wearing sweatpants that have a picture of Grogu in the Pram. So it's around, literally, physically, my body right now. So audience perspective, it makes sense to associate with him, but there's something about his like sort of comfort in it that it feels like he's been with it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Ooh, maybe it's of Jedi design.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's a Jedi Pram. Or maybe he's had so many Prams, and when we inevitably see the moment where he is rescued, I'd have to take a closer look at that flashback to Order 66. He might be in a Jedi Pram.
Oh, that's a good oh my gosh, you're right. Oh, you're right.
Well, this is just another Grogu action figure I'm going to have to buy then. Grogu with Order 66 Pram.
Order 66 Pram.
Disturbing. All right, let's get into really discussing this. How would you physically describe Grogu's hovering Pram for people who are maybe like not pulling it to mind, or we often end up kind of describing our emotions here as well. So feel free to go that direction. But physically, what is Grogu's Pram?
Yeah, it is a pain pill filled with pillows. So imagine a little, a pill that you have to swallow. Maybe you break up and like I do with my chihuahuas, I break up the pill and put the powder on the dog food. It's that, but it's filled with pillows. It is a little floating orb. This one, gray / dirty white, like you said, it's definitely seen some damage. I'd love to see a Pram hot off the assembly line, the bold, bright colors on it. And it just floats. And of course, this fits if you know who Grogu is, of course, and he's a small, diminutive, but powerful little soul in this galaxy. So the Pram's kind of sized to him. It makes me wonder if there's, different sized Prams that fit the child of that you have, the actual size and shape. Maybe there's one that fits a little baby Operensis. I don't know. So that's my introduction there.
Oh, yeah. No, I like that because Grogu is, diminutive. So, you have a species like I want to think Duatan, the really big species. Like, do they have much larger Prams? Yeah, I think the main thing I think of is like this is like one of those chocolate Kinder eggs with the toy inside, but the toy is an actual baby. It's a Grogu in there.
That's a great description. Yes.
Some of the other things that I think about it physically, With that lid, it does have a sensory deprivation tank vibe. Like I like it, but it also gives me this little bit of anxiety. Like that, if I ever tried a sensory deprivation tank, that they'd be like, it actually floats like Grogu's pram, and you're just out of here.
That's a great question because I don't. I don't know. My mother is very claustrophobic, so I probably got a little bit of that. I don't have a ton of it, but there's certain situations where it really kicks up. And one was stuck on an Amtrak train bunk, and the other one might be a pram. I don't know if that would comfort me at all. I think that would be. I know I might have the control to open it up, but that wouldn't be comforting for me. But I guess it is for Grogu.
Yeah. I think that, there's definitely some questions about that. I think the other thing physically for me is it's not about physically resembling, it's more about the energy resembling. There's so much grocery cart energy to the way that Grogu can kind of put his hands right on the front and kind of lean out.
This is just like when I would, finish the candy bar before my mom went to the register. She'd have, and please, she put the wrapper on. Charges for that too. He ate it while he was in the pram, in the cart pram.
Did you, as a youngin', did you ride in that little grocery cart space that's for the kids up front with your legs sticking out in between the wires?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have memories of my mom. And I was this thin, kind of a thinly built kid. Believe it or not, if you see pictures of me now, got my dad's bulkier frame. But I remember my mom struggling to get me in it. Because she also, I'm a child of the 70s. So she had one of those bicycles that was like a 3-wheel bicycle with a basket in the back. And that would be my Grogu pram.
That is a total, absolutely. A little bicycle basket. Yeah. I just suddenly had one of those moments of like, oh yeah, remember how you used to stick your legs through metal bars? I remember it just being like two holes for the legs and like metal in your crotch, and and then you'd ride in the front of the grocery cart. And I suddenly had one of those moments of like, that's real, right? I didn't make that up. That happened to me. That happens, right?
This episode has taken you and I into some like deep-seated therapy where we're like recalling memories of being pushed around. For me, it was in a Lucky Brand grocery store. Just being little Grogu in the grocery cart.
Yeah, I was rolling in the Red Owl. I was good days back then. Able to grab things. Let's talk about the magic of the pram. What does it bring to or add to the Star Wars galaxy?
I'd say something. It is genius. It is absolutely genius. It is so practical, both in story in the galaxy, right? There's clearly babies in the galaxies. Was it easy to get them around? It's a pram, and it would float because we're in Star Wars world. So it works on that level. It works on I call it kind of the 3PO in a sack on Chewie's back level where, well, we got this droid. It's hard to get Tony Daniels around fast. What are we going to do? You know what? He's in a backpack, and that's how we're going to get around Bespin quick. And it kind of works that way too, where you're like, cool, you got this wonderful thing, Din, Grogu, this story, Lone Wolf and Cub. How do we move it all around fast? A floating pram. So it's just genius in its simplicity. It's so of Star Wars. There's just a lot of wonder to it. It is so sci-fi in its own way, but also in this galaxy, that is what you would have, a floating pram.
Yeah, I think that's it. Is like, it's a pram. It's a real thing, right? But it's the space fantasy version. So it's this great sweet spot of Star Wars where it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But also feels like weird and fantastic at the same time. The way like the Millennium Falcon is like the most thrilling, bizarre, exotic ship, but also like, it's an old clunker.
Yeah.
You know exactly what it is. And yet it's also fantastic.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think once you get in kind of the storytelling of it, there's this weird tension that you and I have already wandered into, that it feels both really secure and comforting and safe and totally vulnerable, right?
Yes.
I think the fact that like, okay, you can shut the door, but is that safe to not know what's going on? Who's pushing you, where you're going? How much control do you have over it? I think I was really affected by, like obviously it has some level of directional control, but it's also got that like kind of floaty energy. Like it's got this bumper cart vibe. Like it means to go that direction, but then it'll also just kind of float a little bit. Like those moments where Din wants to get it out of a fight and you give it a kick and it just kind of floats.
Yeah. It's so you touch on something that's really, really wanted this inherent danger to the Pram while also being completely safe. There's so many times, especially watching Mando with Grace, like she has such great reactions sometimes to when like the Pram is there and she's like, go, don't you touch Grogu. Like, it's got to be pushed away or float away, or he brings it over to safety, with a press of the button. And it really heightens the danger while also being what you need it to be, a safe place.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's it too. I forgot about. You're right. He does have like the parent button to. He's got the remote control built into his armor, and I think there's that thing about like once you're an adult, you sometimes kind of long for those moments of feeling, safe and secure. But then you also, at least for me, it's like, but I don't want to lose my agency. So there's this part of me is like, oh, it feels so nice to just be nice to float in a hovering Pram. I can close it if I want, and then the idea that somebody else has a remote control that would just hit a button, go over there.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I also think it's got the Pram has this great tip of the iceberg vibe that I so value in Star Wars, where you totally understand what it is. You understand its function in the story, but it invites all these other fun questions that aren't pertinent to be answered in the story. So you see that Pram and you go like, are they rare? Is that weird to encounter? Or is this like totally normal if we spent more time with infants in Star Wars? And then you go like, are they rare because they're expensive, and like, are they a cross-cultural thing, or do they only appear in certain cultures? Do any cultures have races with them?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that. No, that's great. No, I it's something that's obviously so unique to Grogu and the story of the Mandalorian right now. So, and I want it to kind of remain that way. There's some magic there. But you're right. I would love, and I don't need it to be like spotlight on it. Look, a Pram, but like I would love it to show up someplace else in Star Wars. I think they would be great. Like another kid, not Grogu, but like another kid, another Pram.
Yeah, I would love to see some story about an entitled little rich kid in like the super fancy Pram.
Yeah.
Since Grogu's is clearly in the tradition of a lived-in universe. That's a lived-in Pram. There are smells in there,
Yeah. George Lucas approved. Lived-in Pram. Lived-in Pram.
Lived-in hovering Pram. Should Grogu's Pram, we talked about safety, so in that spirit, should Grogu's hovering Pram have been kitted out with an arsenal of weaponry?
This is a fair point. It's a great question. Maybe I think by season 2, not that Din lives his lives in seasons where he's like, oh, we're getting ready for a new season. But I think maybe he could have done something there and make it, made it less of a Pram and more of a battle pod. That makes some sense to me.
I'm just, when you say battle pod, I get this image of just Grogu with 2 joysticks and there's blasters on the front and he's just firing away.
Yes. like the shield, like the front, it can still close, but it can be transparent. It's like a little cockpit, like a little floating cockpit with some weaponry on it. Maybe some S-foils come out. I don't know. My thing about this is there's so many times during Mandalorian season 1 and 2 where, what I'm talking about, where you're just like, be a better dad, Dad. Like you're leaving this kid out in the cold here. Like, what are you doing? He can't, and plus he gets out and walks, you're just, come on, you got to get a better handle on this. So I think by the time we see him in season 2, this is the starts with that Gromorian guard fight where you and I love that moment of Grogu's so used to his dad's violence by now, he knows it's coming. So he presses the button and hides. Great moment. Great use of the Pram. Wonderful moment. But Din knows I get into some hairy situations. I got to give the kid a fighting chance. Let me put some missiles. Let me put some whistling birds on the Pram.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those conversations that maybe happened off screen because I feel like Pelimoto's the first person who just like, you're his dad and you're only okay at it. There are some basics. I feel like there could be like a cut scene where Pelimoto is like, your whole culture is weapons. Your body is a walking arsenal.
Right.
You ever think of putting any of those on the kids' ride?
Totally.
Didn't be like, God. No.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely think that's where she'd be like, hey, you could put some rockets on here. My ex-boyfriend Tika knows how to do it. He'll come by. And yes, I am submitting in my headcanon that Tika was the Jawa. So I know that's been discussed before.
Amazing. Yeah, we're gonna have a debate show about that one. Did Tika debate Pelimoto? Connections between Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Mandalorian? Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much. It's like definitely a fun thing to like think about, to joke about, to think about Din's relationship to weapons and to his
Yeah.
culture that she's not shy about talking about. But then there's also that storytelling thing about what is Grogu's relationship to violence and how much Din is exposing him to it. And like, would putting two just big bleeping blasters at the front be
Yeah.
the right parenting decision? So where my mind goes is like, that Pram should be loaded with defensive weaponry. Like this should be like, James Bond's car, particularly in like Tomorrow Never
Ooh.
Dies, where like you touch it and you get a shock, right? No
Ooh.
blaster can get through the armor. It has the loudest, coolest, most exotic car alarm honk in the galaxy. Just ear-shattering car alarm honk if anybody messes with it,
I love the Bond connection there. Q would be proud. This is a little Aston Martin waiting for some ejector seats here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of great defense. Lots of shocking. Lots of pirates getting shocked. So since losing his third Pram, Grogu has just been riding in Din's shoulder bag, as well as wobbling around on his own two precious little feet, being taught how to jump higher by Luke Skywalker. Is it time for Grogu to leave the Pram behind? Will the Pram return, or has that been a part of our introduction to Grogu and he's grown up now?
Sadly, this is tough to say. Sadly, yes, it's time for the Pram to die, as Luke Skywalker would have said in The Last Jedi if he was talking about Prams. Yeah, because I think you, me, and other Star Wars fans and podcasters have talked about this, but one day preteen Grogu's going to be around. One day he's going to be a little older if the story carries out, and his fate's still to be determined in the long run of the Star Wars story. But there's going to be that awkward season of the sitcom where Grogu's voice is cracking, and we actually maybe hear his words and his voice and his thoughts. So I think all of it kind of makes sense, and the Pram must be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I love it. And there's a part of me that does just want to see different variations of it, but I feel like it is a means of storytelling. I'd almost rather see the Pram other places, other ways. But I kind of love this idea that, Grogu's really evolving. I think we see that in Book of Boba Fett, that he makes his choice to go back with Din, but he is affected by his training, the way he calms that rancor. So it makes me kind of fascinated with the Pram, that is there this like part of this that like, even with whatever his weird species is, you're not really supposed to be in that Pram at 50.
No.
Is a part of the story. Like that's a little bit of, he's not getting out in the world, the dark side of that, being held back from the atrocities of the world, of like, you should be out there wobbling on your own feet. You know how to force hop now. You can keep up. So I love the idea that maybe Grogu has, in this dark time before Din found him, in between being rescued from the Jedi Temple, and what Ahsoka just describes as he's got some dark memories there. Doesn't want to think about him, doesn't want to talk about him. And then you rescue him, and like the Pram's kind of like, it's cute, but it's a symbol of that, of like, I didn't grow, I didn't change, I didn't evolve, I just survived. And now he's growing, he's changing, he's force hopping to the point where could we see a great comedy scene where Din gets him a new Pram and tries to put Grogu in it, and Grogu just throws a force fit. Just like grabs the edges with all limbs, like, no, not going back. Force throws the Pram into the distance. Just, no. It's time for Grogu to evolve.
I absolutely agree with you. I could almost see something like this happening. They've been reunited, and Grogu's made this big decision, and there's a little bit of the dad saying, "Great, here's your toys," and the kid saying, "No, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not. I think that's wonderful, and I love the force tantrum. Like maybe he throws against, maybe Grogu crumbles it almost like he taps too much into his anger. There's a lesson there to learn. There's a lot there.
Yeah, or probably he would just like use the force to push it away slowly, and play that game where like Din walks towards it, he pushes it farther away.
Yeah. And then Din keeps pressing the, as he said, the parent button and pulling it close, and then Grogu pushes away.
Yep, he pushes against those parental controls. So you mentioned this, but I'm very curious. Any other thoughts of what other Star Wars characters you would like to see as babies floating around in a hovering Pram?
The easy answer is what I'm calling a gaggle of walklings. I forget what Ewoks as a group are called. I actually tried to look it up this morning over breakfast, and I got distracted by looking at the life and times of Chief Chirpa. But yeah, I'll just put a bunch of walklings, like 3 or 4 of them in some prams, like a little pram squad of walklings going around defending Bright Tree Village.
Oh, that is pretty great. Would they have little cute little training spears?
Yeah, little training spears, and then some slings, little baby walkling swings. So they sneak up on you, like 4 of them. It's like a little biker gang. They come hovering in, like they're Jetsons, and then the prams open up, and then they're like, oh, with the slings and slinging rocks at you.
Ooh, I like that a lot. That would be absolutely great to have. Could they float up the trees?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. There's probably some limitation on it, right? Otherwise, you could just take it up into space. But no hyperdrives on them. I think the Rebel Alliance has given the Ewoks some high powered prams to help them around Bright Tree Village, up and down.
Yeah. Oh, I like that very, very much. That's very kind. I would like to see baby Jedi Master Jarl Poof.
Mm-hmm.
The Jedi with the tall neck and the wobbly head. I think it'd just be very cute to have the pram open, and then for a second you don't know who's in it, and then this cute baby head on a tall neck pops up, and you're like, how does that even fit in there?
It's all curled up. He unfurls it. Mm-hmm.
The unfurled neck of Jarl Poof. And then the one I really want to see is there's something, since Grogu is so lovable, I kind of want to see a troublemaker. Just being a little jerk in a pram. And my mind went to Greedo. I want to see Greedo, little baby Greedo, starting fights that he shouldn't in his pram, just ramming people with it. And show us that, Greedo's always had bad judgment.
Yeah. Going for the ankles. Oh, I love that there. I was going to say it. The question is specifically to babies floating around in the pram, as it should be. But I want to adapt the technology. And in Mando Season 3, I want to see Babu Frick show up in a battle pram.
Oh, wow. A battle pram. That is perfect. Yeah, because he can kit one out like nobody's business. Everything we talked about and more, right?
Yeah.
You think it's a pram and suddenly like legs and arms pop out and it's Mecha Babu Frick.
Yeah, Mecha Frick. Oh,
Mecha Frick. It sounds also dirty. Anyway, we always like to conclude by making it very, very personal to ourselves. And I think the big question, Ken, hanging over this entire episode of Databank Dive is, do you want an adult-sized pram to hover in?
I do. I felt I had one for years. I used to drive a 1991 Plymouth Colt, which was about the size of Grogu's pram and felt like one when I was driving around in it, rattling around the LA freeways. So I feel as though I've done that. But yes, I would absolutely want one now. I think it would be convenient. I think it would be relaxing. And where would I go? I am proficient in driving around golf carts. I've even gone through a Del Taco drive-through with a golf cart at 2 a.m. So I would take my pram all around the city.
That sounds like a story. Yeah, I do want one. I just want to feel what it would be like to float in one, and it looks so calming. I'd feel really bad using it. So it's one of these things I'm trying to get better about on podcasts, going, yeah, I want that. Yeah, I'd use that. And like, yes, I want that. And yes, I want to use that. But the thought of actually just climbing into it and starting to float around my neighborhood, I feel like a big jerk.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what you and I would need to do is turn it from pram to nap pod. And it's just a spot in our house where it's just you take nice naps.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's getting kind of almost to like, riding a train in an individual pod, right? That kind of design of like mass transit with pods. So like you just go in there and it's like you're floating around in your living room, getting from point A to point B. That's the part that's pretty appealing.
You know what? You're making me laugh here because I've only one time, Mark Ellis and I went to a stand-up gig and we sprung for Delta One, which is beyond first class. It's absurd class. and you feel like you're in a pram. Now, I think Joseph, I've experienced this because you get in blankets, you have your own TV. And by the way, this was like a 45-minute flight. No, actually, it was about 4 hours to DC, if I remember. And Ellis kept taking pictures because he'd been in this, and he's taking pictures of me because he's like, you're like a baby, you're like a kid. You're so excited to be in here. And I had the best sleep I've had in a long time. And I ate a special egg breakfast. Oh my gosh. I think you're right. It was a plane pram.
A hovering pram.
Yeah.
A plane is kind of a hovering pram in its own way. Yeah.
Yes.
Doesn't keep us away from the atrocities of the world, though.
It does,
so,
does not.
if you had one, where would you go, and what kind of stuff would you take in there with you? If you could just have an adult sized Grogu pram, and you're just like, hey, I gotta go down to Hollywood from the Valley. I got some business down there, but I'm gonna float my pram. Is that where you'd take it, or would you take it somewhere else? And what would you have in there?
I mean, let me ask this question: am I controlling the pram, or is it on auto?
It's on auto. I think you program it, and you got to trust it.
Then great, you just got to trust. Oh, this is why I don't want self-driving cars yet. Music, definitely have some good music, some road music, some pram playlists to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't read. I wouldn't be do that because I do love driving and I love riding cars. Like I'm one of those folks. I drive to relax sometimes and just look at the scenery in the countryside. So and yes, you can find that in LA if you drive far enough. So I think I want the pram to be a little open, and I'd go for a little joyride.
Yeah, I would love that. I think realistically, if they were real, the way I would use it is I like going for long walks. And my wife and I are really lucky to live within easy walking distance of Griffith Park. So we go into Griffith Park and we walk and enjoy some nature. It's here in Los Angeles. But sometimes my wife wants to go for a much longer walk than I do. So if we could go for as long as we want with the pram lady next to me, and then my wife's like, and I want to walk for 2 more miles. And I'd be like, cool, I'm getting in my pram.
Could she have the gauntlet with the button on it, though? So she can keep you safe or keep you close? I'd love to see Sarah with that.
My wife, Sarah, and her entire family have this incredibly strong urge to help and protect. So she would want one. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And she'd offer, like, if you want to close up, if you got a nightlight in there, you got some reading materials, you got some cheese. If you want to close up, I'll make sure you don't get taken by a bear. Don't worry about it.
Love it. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Talking about prams helps you discover who in your life you trust. We made a discovery. So moving on to our final rating. We always like to rate the wild and weird factor. We use the original Star Wars weirdo. Well, one of them, a favorite of ours, Lobot. So we rate from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. So out of 10 Lobot heads, Ken, how many Lobot heads do you give Grogu's pram?
It's so funny because we both talked about how this is just so normal and it's so practical, and it's a baby pram in Star Wars. So that tends to maybe, make me want to just rank it a little lower. But when you stop and think about it and how it was presented and how is it controlled and where did it come from, I'm going like an 8. It's a Star Wars baby pram, and it stands out, and it's wild, and it's wondrous, and it's weird, and it's everything we love here. So I'm going 8 Lobots.
We are in sync. I'm going 8 as well. I think it has so many weird and wild moments in the show and fun moments in the show. But what I really love about it is, you see it and you go like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Wait, I have 1,000 questions. You scratch the surface and you find the wild and weird of Grogu's hovering pram. So there you go. That's our ratings. Feel free to let us know what number you would rate it at. Let us know your opinion as well if you're interested. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, it's real simple. We got a place on Twitter called @4CenterPod. You go there, and there's a link tree that links to everything you want to go to. Our Patreon page actually links from there, too. And our Instagram page got the link tree. So do all that. Find us everywhere. Search. Find us. We are there. Don't forget, we are on YouTube as well. Follow me at Napzok. Go to my website, catnapzok.com. You, sir.
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw. And for all my other comedy adventures, you can check out my website at josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, Ken and I are going to float away in our prams. This has been Databank Dive.